The bronze shield hits the dirt. The man runs. He survives the battle, a defeat, like Leuctra in 371 BCE. He returns to Sparta, not on his shield, but on his own 2 feet. This is what Spartans did to the families of cowards, a fate many considered worse than death. His wife sees him approach, not with relief, but with cold, clear terror. She is now the wife of a tresas, a Trembler. She is a woman captured, not by an enemy, but by Spartan law itself. Her husband's survival is her social execution. Why did this city, which gave women more freedom than anywhere in Greece, reserve this unique cruelty for them? And what did that law demand she do next? His cowardice was a cage, and she was the one locked inside. If you enjoy these dark histories, leave a like and subscribe and comment below where you're listening from. And now, back to the story. The battle smoke clears, but the war is not over. It has simply moved indoors. The tresas, the Trembler, is home. The heavy wooden door of his house swings shut, sealing his family inside a new kind of prison. He is a ghost at his own hearth, a man who has failed the only test that mattered. He has returned on his feet, not his shield, and in doing so, has condemned them all. The hearth fire itself seems to offer no warmth, only smoke. She, the wife of the coward, is now a creature of institutional contempt. She is no longer her own person, mother, or daughter. She is the Trembler's woman. This is her new name, her only identity, spoken in whispers in the market or spat in the dust. This is not a formal sentence read from a scroll. It is a social verdict delivered by the entire polis, as cold and final as a sentence from the Ephors. This is not a captivity of iron bars, but of cold shoulders and stone silence. When she walks to the communal well, the other wives, widows and mothers of the glorious dead, stop talking. They part, letting her pass through a corridor of hatred, as if her presence might contaminate them. Her touch is pollution. Her children are unclean. The law demands she perform her new role. She must wear the peeplos of shame, a coarse, undyed garment, the color of ash. Her hair, once her pride, must be shorn or worn unbound, a sign of mourning for a reputation, not a man. She must not anoint her skin with oil. She must carry the scent of her dishonor. She is forbidden from the public feasts, the Syssitia, where her husband once ate. She cannot approach the temples. She is an exile within her own walls. This stain is hereditary. Her daughters, once prized for their health and Spartan spirit, are now unmarriageable. To join with her family is to join with failure. Her sons, if they are old enough for the agage, are marked men. They will be given the worst portions, the coldest sleeping spots on the reeds. They will be beaten, not as a test of endurance, but as a punishment for their blood. The other boys will learn a valuable lesson. This is the price of weakness. The family is now a lesson, and the lesson must be visible. But how do you punish someone who refuses to look broken? She endures. This is the quiet, desperate will to resist. It is not the resistance of a blade in the open, but of the stone threshold that withstands the boot. She still rises before the sun. She still grinds the barley. She teaches her children to be silent, to observe, to wear their invisible armor. She meets the eyes of the other women, her gaze as level and hard as polished stone. She will not give them the satisfaction of her tears. This was the mercy Sparta offered. He was not executed by his peers. He was allowed to live. This was the hidden price of that breath. He was returned to her as a living instrument of her torture. She was not a widow, a position of tragic honor. She was something infinitely worse, a living woman forced to tend to a dead reputation and to share its grave. The state had made her a warning, and the lesson was brutal. The trial is not held in a court. There are no judges, no scrolls. The trial is the street. The test is the dawn. The condition is stated openly, not in words, but in action. Comply or vanish. To comply means to accept the state's judgment. It means to heap scorn on her husband, to make his life so unbearable that he takes the only honorable path left, the rope, the blade, suicide. This is what Sparta wants. A good wife would cleanse the family line. She would, in essence, execute her husband for the state, sacrificing him to restore her children's status. The community watches her, waiting. Will she do her duty? Her refusal is a single, cold, daily act. She keeps him alive. She rises, she grinds the barley, she fetches the water, even as the others turn their backs. She does not throw him out. She does not hand him the rope. She washes his shameful peplos alongside her own. Her refusal is quiet, mundane, and utterly profound. It is a rebellion not of the spear, but of the hearth. The pressure escalates. First, it was soft pressure, the whispers, the sideways glances, then deprivation. The baker runs out of bread just as she arrives. The potter has no more oil jars. Her neighbor's doors, once open, are now barred with heavy wooden beams. The final escalation is silence. She is treated as if she is not there. She speaks and no one answers. Her children cry and no one looks. She is a ghost, haunting her own life, tied to the other ghost, her husband. The state has ordered her to be invisible, and the city obeys. This was the calculated cruelty of the Spartan system. It was not enough to punish the man. But what if the punishment was never meant for the man at all? This is the answer to why. The cruelty was not for the coward. He was already broken. The cruelty was for the other women. It was a lesson written on the skin of a living family. It was a warning delivered to every wife, every mother in Sparta. This is what happens if your husband fails. This is what happens if your son trembles. This is your fate. The Spartan state was a machine built on a single premise: total military sacrifice. But men are not machines. They fear, they break. To prevent this, the state needed an incentive stronger than honor and a deterrent stronger than death. So, they targeted the one thing a man might value more than his own life: his family. The women of Sparta were the true guardians of its courage. They were the ones who told their sons to return with your shield or on it. By making the wives the enforcers of this code, the state ensured the system's survival. The wife of the tresas was a threat because she revealed the system's lie. By refusing to destroy her husband, she was defying the state itself. The law was meant to break her. Her shame was meant to be a tool, but it became her armor. The silence they forced upon her became her discipline. The isolation they decreed became her fortress. She was no longer a Spartan wife, bound by its rules. She was something else, a survivor, living outside the code. The price of one man's life was the social death of his entire line, but she refused to pay. She was the living proof that the system could be endured, and that made her the most dangerous woman in Sparta. Time passes, seasons turn. The ash-colored peplos frays at the hem. The silence in her house is no longer an assault. It is simply the air she breathes. She has lived in this social grave for years. In the small courtyard, leaning against the cold stone of the house, is the object, his shield, the heavy bronze aspis, the symbol of his failure. It is the very thing he was meant to be carried home on, dead. Instead, he carried it in his own hand, staining it with his survival. The other wives, the widows, would have destroyed it or given it to the temple to be remade. But it is still here. This shield is the hidden place. It is the altar of her private heresy. The children are forbidden to touch it, not because it is shameful, but because it is hers. The state demanded she despise this object, this proof of failure. But what if it was the only proof that her family was still whole? One night, she goes to it. The moon is a sliver of iron in the sky. She runs her hand over the cold, familiar curve. This is her wordless rite of memory. She is not honoring his cowardice. She is acknowledging the man who was. She traces the dents, not from Leuctra, but from other, earlier battles. Battles where he did not run. This is the hidden truth. The state's narrative was simple. He was a coward, and she was his designated punisher. But the truth is, she had made a choice. She chose the complex, broken man over the simple, brutal demands of the polis. In a city that demanded the individual be sacrificed for the collective, her quiet preservation of her broken family was the ultimate act of rebellion. She was not just a victim, she was a dissenter. The historical record is thin. We have sources like Xenophon, who lived among the Spartans. He describes the tresas with clinical precision, how they were forced to yield the path to others, how they were scorned by all. But these records are a public accounting. They are silent on the private defiance of the home, the hearth, the wife. The archives tell us what the law demanded of her. They cannot tell us what she chose. She had refused to be the state's executioner. She had kept her family alive, in the shadows, outside the law's grace. She had preserved the memory of the man, not the glory of the state. And history rarely records such quiet defiance. The record ends. The ink is withheld. In the Spartan state archives, there are entries for battles, there are lists of ephors and kings, there are, perhaps, even lists of the tresas, the tremblers, their names marked for public scorn. But there is no list for their wives. She has been erased. Her name was not chiseled into any stone. Her defiance was not recorded on any scroll. This was the final, perfect mechanism of Spartan control. The state did not need to execute her. It simply had to wait. It outlived her. It owned the ink. We have distant witnesses. Plutarch, writing centuries later, tells us what the law required. Xenophon tells us what he saw in the street, the public humiliation, the social isolation. But these are reports from the outside. They are whispers. They describe the cage, but they cannot see the woman inside. They did not follow her home. They did not see her hand on the shield in the dark. They recorded the state's power, not her will. The bronze shield hits the dirt. The sound is an echo. This is where we began, but the sound is different now. It is not the sound of a battle ending. It is the sound of a heavy door slamming shut, sealing her inside with him. The man runs. He runs from the field, from his duty, from his honor. He runs home, and she, in her silence, refused to let the state follow. The fate worse than death was not the shame. It was the choice the state forced upon her. Become a monster to save her children, or become a pariah to save her husband. She chose the silence. She chose the cold hearth. She chose the man over the myth. The state demanded her cruelty as a final, civic duty, and she refused. Her name is gone, burned from the page, but her choice remains, a hard, invisible fact. Subscribe, hit the bell, and like. History records the law, but never the price.